Welcome again to today's webinar series. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the National Disability Institute. My name is Katie Metz. Again, today's webinar is being sponsored by Bank of America. Leading on today, I'm going to go over just a couple of quick housekeeping slides. Today's webinar is being done through your broadcast through your computer through an audio broadcast. So please make sure that your speakers are turned on and your phones are plugged in if that's the way you're listening to us. You can control the audio broadcast via the audio broadcast panel. If you accidentally close that panel, you can reopen it from the top menu by choosing Communicate and then Join the audio broadcast. If you have any questions, you can also send chats to Nakia Matthews or myself, Katie Metz. As you go into the webinar, if you don't have same capabilities on your computer, you can also dial in by phone. And as you can see on the PowerPoint in front of you, the number to dial in is 1-877-668-4490, and then we have the meeting code as well. You do not have to enter an attendee ID in order to participate. Just go ahead and dial the phone number and use the meeting code we have here. Also, you know in the lower right-hand side of your screen, we have closed captioning available for participants who are deaf, hard of hearing, or where English may be a second language. If you put this down and you don't want to see this, you can do that by minimizing the multimedia window, or you make it so that the multimedia window with the closed captioning bigger by minimizing the other windows above it, the chat window, the Q&A window, and the panelist window. If you experience any technical difficulties, please use the chat box. Send a message to Nakia Matthews or email her at nmatthews@rei-inc.org. Okay, please use the chat box. Any questions you have during the webinar to either Nakia Matthews or Katie Metz in that drop-down box where it says send to, and we will direct the questions accordingly. We'll try to save questions for the end timing. If you're by phone and you're not logged into the webinar, you can also ask questions by emailing them to me directly at rei-inc.org, which is also the email address you received the webinar invite from. Please note the webinar is being recorded and all materials will be placed on our National Disability Institute website at www.realeconomicimpact.org, and we will give that email address, or the website address again later on. I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Strategic Partnerships and Research to do the welcome on behalf of the National Disability Institute. Again, we thank you for being with us today. Dr. Hartnett?
So much, Katie, and Nakia and the whole NDI team for this, great opportunity. The National Disability Institute is a national research and development organization with a mission to promote income preservation and asset development for persons with disabilities and to build a better economic future for Americans with disabilities. The Real Economic Impact Tour, which has been a project, we just finished our 8th year, which is building disability-inclusive free tax assistance, education, and asset-building opportunities for persons with disabilities. Actually began in 2004, and we helped about 7% of taxpayers, 7%, and we're up to almost 18% of the taxpayers accessing the free volunteer income tax assistance work today are indeed taxpayers with disabilities. I think our outcomes, it's continuing. Many of you, and this is a great call here, where our numbers continue to rise. We had over 400 and I think 40 or 50 registered for this call. It is through the work that many of you have been doing that has really helped us show awareness that disability is a key component of diversity and building inclusive practices, not just when the person comes in to get their taxes done, but across the continuum. And I think the other piece that we're so proud of is that we've actually put a face on the poverty issue, because so many of our people with disabilities are indeed living in poverty. We could not do this without our the partnerships and sponsorships. And the Bank of America today is the sponsor for this, and was our inaugural sponsor when we very first started. And this was an idea that this was important. And Walmart, Accorda, the Institute for Economic Empowerment, Burton Blatt Institute, and of course our dear partner IRS, that without whom we would have never even access. I have the distinct pleasure always of introducing Wynne Lum, and for many of you, you know him. He is, the quintessential leader in philanthropy, in economic and financial literacy. He's a senior vice president of Bank of America, and he's truly been a partner for this work, and not only supporting his work is expertise with youth, working individuals and families, but also people with disabilities. And I want to thank our presenters, and I'm going to let Wynne do the introductions, but we have the state of Washington, the state of Florida, and the state of Delaware, and these are the great models that are happening that are going to change the economic world in this country, because it's going to help people become more engaged in their own financial management. So with that, I'm going to say welcome, Wynne.
John, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this National Disability Institute webinar, another one, and happy second day of summer. I think we know in this time of the year is that there are many students that are out of school and are probably in day camps or summer camps or doing something. And one of the reasons they're in camps is, one, not only to have fun, but also to improve on their skills. As we know, there are sports camps and there are music camps and drama camps and all of these wonderful camps that are out there. And the reason students go to these camps is to improve their skills, to gain new skills, and to help themselves get better. And through the school year, either they don't have the time, or that the lessons that they are learning are just not specific enough to help them with their needs. This same and the same strategies why Bank of America supports financial coaching and financial education. Financial coaching, taking education to the next level. We would like to do that by having the experts out there, individual expertise, go up there and deliver new skills to be needed. People that know that they need skills or need to improve on their skills or need to use skills now. So that if I'm not looking to buy a home, why am I given home classes? If I'm just looking to learn to open a checking account, I'd like to get that skill and get the information now. That's what financial coaching is about, and that's why we at Bank of America support that. We can't do this thing alone. We need help of our partners like the National Disability Institute. We need partners like all of you on the phone today to help us do that and to help us meet the needs that are out there in the community. Because, again, the best way to get it out there is to, one, make sure it's local, make sure it's personal, and ensure that people understand the skills that they're getting. So I'm happy to be part of this webinar, happy to support all of you in this work that you're doing. And today we have three experts that are going to present their best practices and their experiences and share their wealth of knowledge with all of us. And will not go into their biography. You will get a copy of their biography at the end of this session. But you will, what you know about these three is that they are experts in their field, that have in common service, like all of you, and helping to meet the needs out there in our communities to help bring financial empowerment to all. So I'll start. I've asked all three of them to share a fact with all of us, a fact that has nothing to do with this webinar, but something I'd like to know about them, and it's something we remember them by. So I'd like to start off first with Dr. Michael Gutter, who is with the University of Florida, and he is also with the Florida Jumpstart Coalition and many other organizations down there in the Southwest. Doctor, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Michael Gutter, and I get one interesting fact about me. Of course, I'm a father of two, and one of the hobbies I have in common with my son is that he and I engage in martial arts, and he's a year away from his black belt. I've got a little bit longer to go, but still kind of a fun little factoid for us for sure. So I wanted to share, guys, a little bit about the program that we've been working with here in Florida, and it's called the Florida Master Money Mentor Program. And this program did begin in 2010. I represent not only the University of Florida, but also the Cooperative Extension system of Florida as well, which includes 67 county offices, so an office in every one of our 67 counties here in Florida. Our program is, as many of them are, a coordinated referral network of volunteers who work one-on-one with individuals and families, of course, and they focus on a few specific key tasks. We try and keep it a very finite goal. The number one thing that we try and work with is budgeting. Working on helping them develop basic savings plans and setting SMART goals. I think we're all familiar with that phrase, of course. Working with financial institutions, trying to help those that may be unbanked or underbanked, and looking with that. And, of course, understanding credit and debt, and even improving family communication about money. So that's the essence of the program. And as I mentioned before, we launched it in about 2010. And this actually began in a conversation, as many of you may do. We base a lot of our outreach efforts on something known as the trans-theoretical model of behavior change. And one of the implications of that theory is simply the fact that, while we can help individuals with education and take them to certain points with information and access, oftentimes people require a little bit more assistance in sustaining or maintaining a level of behavior. And really that maintenance phase of behavior is oftentimes where someone like a mentor or a coach can help them to, number one, help them initiate a new behavior like budgeting, and then also to continue to work with them so that they can maintain that behavior over time until it really takes hold for them as individuals. And so like many, certainly, we want to acknowledge this program, of course, began with a set of partnerships, and the program began with funding specifically from Bank of America, who, as was kind of stated, really valued this notion that we would be helping individuals on a very one-on-one basis, especially in rural communities as well. To provide support and education really to low to moderate income Florida families in order to promote positive financial practices for them. We want to increase financial knowledge, positive financial practices, specifically about budgeting, savings, banking, credit, and debt. And we really want to make sure that we can emphasize this in rural and low-income communities. And part of it, of course, is that that's oftentimes a very underserved community. There may not be as many nonprofits or other partners available to them in some of those communities. Mentors themselves work with individuals. They receive about 20 hours of intensive training. And this training, of course, has been done face-to-face previously, as we'll kind of review some of those results, and we'll be creating an online version of the training to extend the reach to help some of our partners in terms of scheduling the training. 20 hours is obviously a commitment for someone to take on, but we feel it's very important that someone's very well prepared in order to move on and forward with the family. So the training, of course, covers basic money management issues, our calendar-based budgeting system in particular, strategies for coping with financial difficulties and challenges that families come up, as well as helping people understand more about the mentoring process, what it takes. Many of our volunteers, have some experience with that, but others are very new to mentoring, and so as a result, we want them to feel comfortable with it, what their role is, what sort of the boundaries should be, what should they do, and what shouldn't they do. And really kind of our understanding that we try and go into with mentors is that we're asking them to commit about 50 hours of mentoring per year. So roughly it comes out to about an hour a week of their time. And a lot of people, of course, are very great about trying to make sure and are very generous with their time in that regard. In addition to the mentoring itself, we also ask them to complete continuing education, be familiar with the tools and resources that are available. As many of you know, oftentimes many families aren't connected with some of the local resources that may be in there, whether it's at religious organizations, local nonprofits, or other groups that are really there to support such families, but for whatever reason the families aren't aware of them. So we make sure that the mentors, of course, are plugged into those networks as best as possible, and of that is facilitated through our local leadership, through our county extension offices. And then, of course, as we'll talk about, too, they complete activity reports to share the impacts and results of their efforts. As we're always trying to make sure that we understand whether or not the program's being effective or how we can make it more effective for individuals. In addition to, we make sure that they act in sort of an ethical manner, and we're always kind of following up and checking to make sure just that people are being treated well, and then, of course, that their needs are being met. For a little bit of a commitment for this, good communication, interpersonal skills, we can try and develop some of those, but certainly we know that that's something that many people have to come to the table with. I know that people have to be able to maintain confidentiality and trust, be trustworthy, and people have to themselves be accessible. While can certainly facilitate a place for individuals to meet at our local extension offices, or some, of course, will choose to meet virtually with individuals, especially those who may have more limited mobility. We need to make sure that people will commit to being available at least as much as possible We understand that they're a volunteer, but we do want people that are going to be well committed to the program, of course, too. And then we also, trying to get people to avoid endorsing specific products. We want people to connect to financial services, but we don't believe that that would ever be a sales opportunity, if you will. So the audience for our program includes low to moderate income individuals and families, with a specific emphasis on a few different points: veterans, distressed homeowners in particular, those that are underserved by the financial services sector, some both unbanked and underbanked, and really trying to meet the needs of diverse audiences, those that have different needs and different abilities, of course, too, that we want to make sure that we're working with. So trying, again, in general, to reach out to various audiences, but we know that we can't be something to everyone. And one of the ways that we try and do this is to, number one, we try and recruit from some of these various groups. We have veterans that are some of our volunteers. We have retirees that are some of our volunteers. And we, of course, have those that, have been through some of their own life struggles that are signing up to be involved, which is always very exciting, of course. What we work on, of course, evaluating this program, and this is where the program compliance comes into play. We have an intake process. When someone comes into the system, there's initial kind of a history that's taken, if you will, if for the analogy, understanding the situation, and that information is all mapped out into our online client management system. And the client management system will also have them the ability to record information about someone's individual financial position. As they have individual meetings with this person, they can record notes and such. And this really helps us because while that information is accessible by the mentors, it's also accessible only by the state leadership as well. So our state staff and coordinators, of course, work together to code that data also and aggregate it and break it down by the county and the mentor so that we can see which counties are having success with the program and which mentors are maybe doing a great job, because we do have awards that we like to give out. We have outstanding leadership awards for our local county agents that are overseeing the program. We like to spotlight and highlight mentors and give them awards for those that are just really having a lot of excellence or strong impact. It's not necessarily how many people they see, but just how profoundly they might be impacting some people's lives. And we've seen quite a bit of that, actually, in terms of it. We can look at some of the results that we've had. Right now, just to kind of put it into perspective, over the last several years, we now have 500 mentors in roughly 30 counties, and we have several new trainings going on every month. Currently, there's over 700 program participants in our online database, and they're all working with mentors. We've helped a lot more people over the lifetime of the program, of course, as well. And just to into perspective about going back to our target audience, 98.4% of the participants served by our programs are at or below the median income level for their area, an average of about $23,000 of annual income. Everyone in the program develops a budget. It's one of the trademarks of the program itself. We believe that level of financial organization is really important. And that's mainly because for a lot of people, even if they're in distressed homeownership situations or struggling to work with financial institutions or really just maybe navigating, their own budgeting process, we believe that financial organization is very key to that process. In addition of those, and again, 29% have also received foreclosure prevention counseling, which included some loan modifications. Some of our mentors and some of our staff that they coordinate with the mentors, of course, are counselors. And so in some instances, people have been needing to get their finances organized because they had been in housing distress. They've been behind on their mortgage payments. They may meet with us, help them get organized, and then move them on to the next level of working with the community access center or working directly with the HUD counselor that we're working with in our own county. So there's many ways, of course, that people can get involved in the program, and certainly I want to just throw the email address out there should people have any questions about the nature of the program itself. But one of the things that we try and encourage everybody to do is that this idea of helping individuals on a one-on-one basis, I believe, is a real important part of this financial empowerment process. Many individuals, for whatever reason, really do need an additional support system going forward as they're changing their behaviors. Any of us who have ever tried to change something in our lives know that having the right support or the right champion behind you can really make all the difference in the world. Certainly, there may be questions later on, but I wanted to just share a little bit about the overview of our program and some of its accomplishments. So thank you all for listening, and I'll be around for questions later.
Thank you very much, and you're right. We will have questions from the participants after the third presentation that we have. You mentioned evaluation and some of the outcomes in your program. We're going to get into evaluation right now. as a result of financial coaching. And we're going to have our next expert across the country from Florida all the way to the state of Washington is Ms. Diana Dollar, who is with the Burst for Prosperity campaign.
Thank you so much, Wynne. And well, everybody, I'm really very pleased that we're able to share with you much of what we've learned over the last probably year and a half. But let me first introduce our organization just a little bit and then kind of give you a little bit of context of, as I go into the presentation, why we developed the training, and then, as Wynne was mentioning, share a little bit about our evaluative lessons learned over this last year and a half. At Burst for Prosperity, we are an initiative, and we specifically do statewide. We look at is around poverty reduction and through the wealth creation lens. So specifically, we look at career pathways, asset development, and microenterprise. And our main purpose really is to research innovative ideas, test them on the ground, and then use that to inform our policy work. And one of the areas we've been very much involved over the last 3+ years is looking specifically at folks who are stuck in poverty. And what I mean by that is folks who are experiencing generational poverty as well as situational poverty, folks who have maybe been relocated from refugee camps, and really trying to better understand how the agencies, both nonprofit agencies as well as public agencies, serve the individuals. And I'll add that as I give my presentation, I'm not distinguishing specifically organizations or programs that are serving folks with disabilities, but I will make a note at the front end that what our approach and what we've come to learn from our partner organizations out in the community is that what we're beginning to see is that this is becoming a more universal approach. So folks across the board who are experiencing poverty, and that includes people with disabilities. So I was very eager to, in supportive of the idea that in the disability community that there's this idea that there is many people who go unnoticed in terms of their learning disabilities, et cetera, that are in the system receiving services but not necessarily are being addressed or their needs are being addressed appropriately. So anyway, let me get to the training itself. So Burst developed a training program. As I mentioned, it's specifically looking at the issues around agencies that are serving adults in poverty. And we have taken a very strong interest in Frontline staff because we consider them to be very much the gatekeepers of information. And we recognize that they play a very important role in terms of the success of individuals, and specifically in respect to their financial stability. So we approached this training, which I'll note, I'm not going to go into the great details of the curriculum per se, but I'm very happy to share an outline of that curriculum, which through email, et cetera. But just to note that in terms of the vision, it really is about building the capacity of frontline staff. And we set this project up as not just a training development program, but really as a study. And this is a 5-year study that we're engaging in. With the first step was really to look at what the capacities are, the financial capacities of frontline staff. We did a statewide study or survey to look at exactly where folks are and what we might be able to better understand of where their sort of baseline, their starting point is at in relationship to understanding financial concepts. And what we discovered is that there is definitely a lower percentage of folks who are serving individuals out there in the community. In terms of their financial competencies, it's actually lower than the national average. So that tells us a lot. So if we're putting folks in sort of supposed front line of addressing financial issues, we certainly want to be able to provide the appropriate kinds of training and support to help them to do their work effectively. So as my slide indicates, the biggest issue is that we want to be able to eliminate the need for clients or customers to return for public assistance. And I'll note that this doesn't include fixed income folks. We recognize that there will always be that use of public dollars to provide supports for their needs. As I go into this, one of the things that we did recognize is that there really is an opportunity for us across the board to shift the way that social services are being provided from this concept of entitlement to empowerment. And when we looked at that first survey, of the results, we recognized it wasn't just about the financial capabilities, it was also about their comfort level in talking with clients about financial matters. So if we were really trying to address folks to become financially stable, then we have to had to look at both the financial issues related to their competencies, but also if we're shifting this entitlement to empowerment concept within social services, we also had to address the comfort level of being able to encourage staff to be more open in terms of how they work with folks coming in for services. So this idea of financial coaching certainly is something that is talked about a lot nationally. And so what we have really tried to pay attention to in our second year was really looking at then, okay, if we develop this training, this financial coaching training, which we looked at other trainings that are out there, and we pulled together folks from our asset building community across the state as well as experts in the coaching community and said, okay, let's take what we know now and let's figure out what it is that we can address or we can develop to address these particular learnings. They recognize that there's certainly the potential for us to have a greater impact in terms of how staff are providing services to individuals coming into their organizations. And so we did in this last year, we actually conducted in 2011, we provided training across the state to over 80 agencies with over 150 folks, and we were able to conduct a very intensive evaluation, both quantitative and qualitative assessment, or quantitative and qualitative. So we're both capturing the feedback from individuals when they were completing the training, as well as several months after they were applying the training. And in my slide here, when I'm talking about the learning objective, is that we really wanted to understand this concept of how folks, staff, are able to engage in an empowerment model and using those financial tools that are incorporated into the training, so that what we're able to see is whether or not people are actually making any progress in terms of those two issues of financial competency and understanding how to use those financial tools to work with clients or customers, as well as that comfort level. So our training in terms of the approach, just very quickly, is we taught the concepts of coaching, and it's based on International Coach Federation standards. We held true to that framework because we felt that that was really where the empowerment model is contained, but we also want to approach in supporting the staff to look at the individual in a very holistic fashion. So again, to draw that comfort level in talking with clients, we also wanted to instill in staff the idea that as a whole person, there's also a whole person coming to you financially with financial potential. And again, we're also recognizing that there's a fixed income aspect here, which I'll touch on in a little bit in my evaluation comments. But in terms of the approach, we really felt that we wanted to convey that there are three elements, and this is coming from our researchers that we work with. Some are the folks that we have. I've worked closely with Michael Sheridan, who is with Washington University and is the godfather of individual development accounts, and has been very much a support through our work to look at this aspect of how do people really engage or understand, in terms of clients and customers, understand the use of money. And it's definitely the tools such as savings accounts and being banked and so forth are absolutely essential. But what we're really interested in is that long-term impact. How can they sustain these behavior changes over time? And so that's why we developed this approach, which is the asset creation, asset management, and asset protection, which we call the asset trio, and how to use that in the framework along with coaching so that we can actually begin to see some kind of shift in terms of habits, long-term sustainable habits around financial matters. So the program itself is a 6-day, very intensive 6-day training with 6 monthly follow-up sessions, and we've included those 6 monthly follow-up sessions because there's so much learning that goes on once they implement. And this was one of the things that we learned very early on in our evaluation, is that when somebody is taught financial concepts or tools and coaching, the learn comes in a very delayed fashion. It's usually like 6 to 12 months later. They're beginning to really understand how to apply, given the various scenarios. Every client individually will come in and have very unique aspects related to their circumstances. So this financial coaching approach is not a one-size-fits-all. And so our sessions, follow-up sessions, very much reflect a lot of the struggles that staff have in terms of how they're able to actually apply what they've learned. And I mentioned that it has very much, it's connected to the International Coach Federation standards, and so we actually have this program, this training program has been certified by the ICF. So folks can, if they want, they can go on to become a full-fledged coach, as well as combining it with the financial management practices. The curriculum itself, we've got, as I mentioned, we've broken it up, and I'll just mention really quickly the elements. So as I indicated, the coaching aspect following ICF standards, it is very much about professional coaching, but we have been able to customize the coaching approach over the last several years in doing this, or last years, I should say, at working with individuals who are coming in crisis into an agency is different than somebody who's very motivated and wants to make life changes. So when you're doing coaching, there's a lot of fear around the circumstances that they're at, or there's high anxiety, or there's anger, and there's lots of things that staff encounter when clients or customers are coming in. And so in the coaching training aspect, we talk a great deal about what it means to actually coach through those emotional experiences. And then how do you insert the financial content or financial aspects into those discussions? So there's standalone programs where there's financial counselors and money management and so forth in organizations now in the asset building community. But we're also very interested in those frontline staff who have multiple responsibilities, whereas this is just one aspect. And we're trying to really increase their understanding of financial concepts as well. So the financial management elements of the training are really fundamental, and they're very basic. So we're not teaching people to be financial planners. We're actually trying to give people a baseline understanding of financial concepts so that they can support folks who are going on into workshops that have to do with spending plans and other types of debt management, credit remediation, and et cetera. Some of the early results. Now, this is kind of what I was getting back to, or was touching on early on, which is the idea of financial security certainly is a multi-step process, and there's one of the things that we're trying to better understand is what kind of supports do staff need inside the organization in order to do their work more effectively. One of the items I touch later, which is the agency structure, is that if you have an empowerment approach, if you've got a desire to really approach people holistically and to think of them as a whole person, regardless if they're on fixed income or if they have the potential in the long term to build wealth, then you got to recognize that the agency plays a role. And we see very frequently that agencies themselves have some barriers that put walls up for staff to be able to be effective. And I got a very little time, so I'll be able to take questions later, too, of what I've written here. I've also, just briefly, income generation, the last bullet, as I say, is essential but not always the goal. Income generation is important, and we also want to encourage that those conversations happen because there is definitely an opportunity, especially for people with disabilities, to do things that can supplement their fixed income, such as hobby business. And so we're trying to encourage those types of discussions as well, and that's a change for a lot of folks in this field. So three things that I was talking about the impact for especially organizations serving folks with disabilities. The fixed income aspect is all about goal setting, and coaching is so critical to that, as well as securing stability financially. And I can certainly talk a little bit more about that through questions. And I realized to wrap all this up that I forgot to mention what my one item is. So I'm rushing through this, and I'll make it really quick. I'm a big fan, if I want to talk about financial security and living it myself, I'm a big fan of recycling furniture. I love to take furniture from friends and reupholster them and sell them. So that's my big thing. So anyway, Wynne, I know I wished I rushed that one through, so thank you.
You about that. So thank you on not only sharing your program, but your interests as well. So from the state of Washington, we'll go clear across to the first state in the union, and we'll talk to Ms. Mary DuPont, who has shared with us her work with the state of Delaware.
Yes. Well, hello, everybody. It's great to be here today, and it was very interesting hearing what my colleagues are doing across the country. Hopefully some of this, what we're doing here in Delaware, will resonate with both of you and many of you who are listening as well. Let's see, I think I can control this. There we go. I think probably on the call, most people are familiar with the kinds of financial challenges that average person faces. And, personally, I didn't give my personal thing. I'll do that at the end. But personally, I've been in the nonprofit sector for my whole career and recently started working in state government with the state of Delaware and the governor, who has a priority on financial empowerment. So this is an initiative of the state of Delaware and the United Way. But in the work that I've done throughout my career, doing tax prep, financial education, working with small businesses, these issues here, I think we can all agree, this is something that just started with the financial crisis that started in 2008. In Delaware, since the crisis started, things are even worse than it was before. Obviously, I'm sure it's the same for just about everybody on the call. With the unemployment, we have a lot of our big industries are banking, the auto industry, and manufacturing, and of course there's been a lot of plant closures, layoffs, people becoming unemployed, or people going into new careers, loss of retirement benefits, bankruptcies, and with all of that, I work with the Department of Health and Social Services. Our caseloads are just skyrocketing for Medicaid, food stamps, child care. So we have a lot of people who are really in need of help. And the question is, how can we help people to become more financially self-sufficient, also to increase their financial mind? And I know that sounds very nebulous, but the reality is when you're worried about money all the time, it's really hard to be effective in other parts of your life. So one of the things that we really focus on here, and one of the reasons why the program is called Stand By Me, is because we try to be there as a source of support and information and a resource for the people that we serve in Delaware. So I think I covered this. This is a partnership, as I said, with the state and the United Way. We also work with a lot of other partners, and I'm going to touch on that. But I think the greatest plus that I'm experiencing, being an old nonprofit person coming into government, is when you have the support of the governor. It's just amazing how people kind of sit up and pay attention. And that's been really fantastic for us as we've rolled out this project. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. Over the past year, we've served 1,200 customers with Stand By Me. And this is the package that we offer. We do the one-on-one personal financial coaching. Bank of America introduced us to a fantastic model out of New Mexico that was developed by Central New Mexico Community College, Ann Lynn Hall. I don't know if she's listening, but I'd like to give her a shout out because she came to Delaware with her team and trained us on this methodology in coactive coaching. And the training was sponsored by Bank of America. Since then, we've trained about 150 partners in the nonprofit sector, in the public sector, and volunteers on the methodology. And it's really designed to help our customers to own their own situation, to take charge. We ask them to identify what are your challenges, what are your goals, and what's your action plan. How do you want to get there? And the role of the coach is to facilitate that process by asking powerful questions and helping that person to connect with the information and the resources they need in the community to be able to achieve their goals. We also partner with financial institutions. We've developed an array of products and strategies to help people who are and underbanked to connect with consumer-friendly financial products and services. And we also developed a money menu where we have basically done the research on every bank in Delaware, all the different products that are offered for various loan products, whether it's a car loan, a home equity loan, a savings account, CDs, and we compare and contrast in a spreadsheet so people can make good decisions when they're looking for a specific financial product. We have a whole emphasis on post-secondary education. I think, as we would probably all agree, it's really hard to be financially secure if you're not going to be able to work your way up through your career and eventually earn the kind of income that can grant a household some financial security. So at the same time, our post-secondary system has become increasingly complex in terms of access and specifically getting financial aid. And then once we get financial aid and we get our degree, there's the challenge of paying for it. So Stand By Me helps families to put together a financial plan on how to pay for college, apply for FAFSA, and then put together a plan to manage student loan debt. We also partner with a lot of nonprofits in Delaware who do great work in these issues. We work with the Consumer Credit Counseling on debt consolidation. We work with a lot of housing counseling agencies on home ownership and foreclosure assistance. We partner with our Earned Income Tax Credit campaign for free tax assistance, IDA programs, etc. The bottom line is we try not to duplicate services that are already offering. Our methodology really can be summed up in one way. We, as far as the way we deliver Stand By Me, we have a strategy of a financial empowerment center without walls. We work with state agencies, players, colleges, school districts to co-locate these services on site to serve workers, students, families, and the public. And our partners love this because it's a real enhancement for them to be able to offer these services to their employees. And I thought that the presentation that Diana did was interesting because now I work for state government, for the Department of Health and Social Services. My big mistake was coming in here and saying, well, we're going to change the way the state does business and we're going to train all of our case managers to help people to become financially empowered, not just financially dependent by getting those benefits. And there was almost like a revolt after I tried to do that. So what we decided to do is to work with other community partners, and the secretary of our department in Health and Social Services decided that we are going to offer state as a benefit to our own employees. And have they changed their tune now? We're not making them offer it to their customers just yet, but what we are doing is we're offering it to all of our state employees who work in the Department of Health and Social Services, and we've had fantastic response to that. They're very excited about this employee benefit. Simply, this is the picture of our model. We partner with government, employers, nonprofits. What I didn't say is that as we raise the money for this, and most of the money is raised through the private sector, the United Way is our fiscal partner, and we contract with local nonprofits who have expertise in this, in financial empowerment work, either through financial education, home ownership, or in one way or another they've been in a related field. And they come on board and we train them and actually deliver the services. We're partnering with a lot of national organizations, faith-based, K-12. We're partnering with a local school district now to offer this to students and parents, particularly connecting the dots for secondary education. And we're partnering with the National Disability Institute to offer this to people with disabilities, and in conjunction with all of the state agencies that offer that in the state. I'm going to wrap it up right there and just take questions from you if you have any.
Mary, before you do that, what's your personal fund for us?
Oh, when I love to cook. And everything about food, shop, eat, cook. And when I retire, I'm going to have a food show. I'm going to be the next Rachel Ray.
Very much. So let's get to the questions from the participants call. Questions for our three panelists.
I think you have one from Jessica Ho in Nashville, and she wants the question is for Diana. How frequent are the follow-up sessions held? One time a month for 6 months, or once every other month for 12 months?
We have 3-hour sessions, or they range 2 to 3 hours a month for 6 months. And they'll be, depend on the group, they'll either be consecutively 6 months, or we spread them out over a period of time, within a 12-month period of time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Another question from the online system is to Dr. Gutter, what is your online client management system?
Sorry, phone issue there. We're actually, because we're a HUD counseling agency, a lot of what we use, because some of our families are in distressed home ownership situations, we're actually using the HCO system, which has actually been very helpful for us too. And that allows us to also work with some of the tools in there, PowerPay, and then as some of our clients need additional assistance through the HUD program, they're in the system, which actually works out really well for us. It's a nice way to aggregate the information.
Other questions from our participants.
Hey guys, this is Nikki from NDI. We have a couple more questions came in. Dr. Gutter, this question was for you. How do you recruit your volunteer budget coaches?
Great question. There's many different methodologies that we use, actually. It depends upon the county. Some of our counties, we're actually working directly with social services agencies, which I know was mentioned earlier, and that's because, as many of you know, those are some of the boots on the ground themselves. So we certainly work through our partners in that regard. Two additional ways that we and so we'll arrange the trainings with those agencies, of course, as well. Some of our, as many of you know, Cooperative Extension is involved in a lot of volunteer efforts from 4-H on and above. So many of our county agents have sort of a network of people that they've been working with. So we drew upon that as well. I also recruit, in addition, from the VITA sites. Many of the VITA volunteers are actually very happy to be involved in other year-round efforts. As we know, VITA takes place, over a certain time frame. We've had a lot of VITA volunteers too, and in fact, that's something we're starting to flip back on in some of those rural communities. Then that some of our Master Money mentors want to then go and help out with VITA as well during that time of year. Certainly, kind of relied upon some of those different mechanisms and methods as well. And in addition, we also work directly with the Financial Planning Association and many of our financial services partners to recruit. And then finally, of course, through the retirees across our community through different networks as well. So we leverage a lot of the networking at that county level. That's been really helpful for us. That grassroots connection that many of our agents have in their communities does a really nice job. And two, to mention some of our other partners like the United Way and some of our communities also helps some of the counties too to be a part of some of the programs and initiatives they have, relying upon our training to help get some of their coaches ready as well.
Doctor, very much. Let me get to, before we run out of time, a question for all three of our experts on the line. And this is a question that came in online. Is your funding? Where do you get your funding for your program? Start with you.
Absolutely. From different methods. So a lot of our infrastructure, of course, is provided by state and federal dollars, of course. But then, as I mentioned before, we've been very fortunate to have Bank of America has been a really generous funder for us for the last several years. Really helping to make sure that we're able to have some of our coordinator positions, as well as helping to offset some of the cost of the training. But our county agents at the local level coordinator, they're already paid positions through state and county dollars. My, of course, time is already included as well. And the infrastructure we have for things like the trainings, the ability to have those meetings is already part of our resources. So really it's the additional support we get from Bank of America and some of our other local partners as well. At the state level, it's really Bank of America, and at the local level, for those counties, they work with financial institutions and other partners.
Thanks, Dollar.
Thank you. Probably the quickest way is we are privately funded by mostly foundations, private foundations, but I would say that if we're talking about the agencies that are receiving the training, we've had organizations sponsor the training for the agencies that are going, or the staff that are going through the training, and typically that's private funding as well. So be happy to share that in email. But for the most part, we're seeing that it's private money that's paying for the training as well as the development.
Thank you.
Our funding is primarily from local foundations and financial institutions.
Turn this back over to Katie. Thank you, United Way, as well. So thank you. I'm turning this back over to Katie to wrap it up. Thank you for having Bank of America on this call and on this conversation.
Thanks, Wynne. We truly appreciate all of Bank of America's support, and we thank you for what you did today and everything you do on an ongoing basis for National Disability Institute and the Real Economic Impact Tour. Just wanted to say, I know we have about 17 questions in the queue, which is wonderful that we have so many questions. And what I promise to you is that we have captured all of these questions along with your names. When you logged in, we captured your email address. So I'll ensure that I get with each of our panelists, get the answers to your questions, and we will email those to you. We can also post the answers to those questions along with the bios and the presentations and the recording on the website, so that if everyone wants to be able to share in the responses that we receive, then we make sure that that, as I said, everyone gets their questions answered and everyone else can see what asked and the responses. So we promised to get those to you. I'm so sorry we ran out of time, but it's wonderful we had such great interest. I would invite you to join us for our next webinar series next month, which we will actually be doing for our learning series, a two-part session. You have to register for both to attend. It will be Tuesday, July 10th and July 17th. Please note that this is on a Tuesday because we did do a two-part series for our normal third Thursdays of the month. And they will be from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it will be a public benefits training with Sharon Brent, which is something that we do all over the country, and we're so wonderful. It's just wonderful that we're able to offer this on the national webinar so everyone can call in and participate. So please be sure that you check out our website, and also if you're not already to sign up for our distribution list, so receive all the notices that come through. Send out the invite for that webinar in the next couple of days, so watch for that. And again, if you don't see it, you're more than welcome to go to our website to register for the webinar. You're always welcome to email myself or any of the staff at NDI, and we'll answer any questions you might have and get you in touch with the right individuals to really getting involved with the Real Economic Impact Tour. And you can find us in all these wonderful places: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Flickr, Tumblr, and as we stated earlier, the webinar will be recorded. It will be placed on our website, and through YouTube you'll be able to watch and listen to the entire recording as well as look at the presentations and the bios of all of our wonderful presenters today. Thanks again. We can't do any of this work without our wonderful sponsors, Walmart, Bank of America, the IRS, Burton Blatt Institute for Economic Empowerment. We are out of time, and again, we'll make sure we get all those questions answered. Thank you to all our panelists today. Thank you to all the NDI staff, and thank you to Wynne for moderating. Have a good day.
Thank you.